Good afternoon, this is Xfinity Channel on Education. If last week we were talking about the mysteries or some of the mysteries of the English language, today we wanted to talk about how we can teach all this richness in the classroom. So obviously we need some plan, we need some kind of order there. But at the same time, we have to create engaging material, engaging activities. And on one hand, we have to give the students what they need to learn. And on the other hand, we have to provide to teach them what they want to learn. So is that even possible? How do we do it? I'm here today with Graham Bell in Malaga. Hi, Graham.
Hi.
And Rob Wiley in Barcelona.
Hi.
And all of you, obviously. We look forward to your comments about the activities that you like in class, how you link them, how you make the class flow, and how you teach the different types of activities. My name is Radmila Gurkova. Let's get started. So, Graham, all this variety of activities that we have in a class, is it random or it has some order?
Well, for building your class for sort of order, I think that every teacher has their own style. I wouldn't like to say that there's a robotic system to follow through, but I like to introduce grammar activities at the start, so then they have a longer period to produce that grammar when I then link it to the topic, and I try and merge that together. So that it has a purpose.
And from your experience, what type of activities do students enjoy the most? Topic, grammar, vocabulary?
It depends on the level. I think that sometimes topic activities, when they're starting to learn them, starting to do them, they're quite scary because they may do a reading piece, which is supposed to be then taking in information, but because they're also productive skills and speaking at the same time, when I then get to the point of asking them questions about what they've just read, they get that I was reading it and speaking it, not understanding it. Mm-hmm. So at lower levels, they struggle with that. I tend to find the lower level guys love vocabulary more and learning functional kind of grammar to use in situations. And then at higher levels, they love topic.
What about you, Rob?
Yeah, I would say the same. At the higher levels, they love a good debate or, talking about something a bit controversial. Whereas, as you say, especially with the lower levels, they're still building sort of the foundations for their English, so the vocabulary and some basic structures are the most important.
And what about you, teachers? What do you guys prefer to teach?
We had a little chat before, and I like the topics. I do like having a chat, even if it is about something controversial. I think the students really, really enjoy it. Having said that, if we're thinking in terms of grammar, I enjoy teaching conditionals, for example. I think, again, you can kind of have a bit of fun with that, and students actually enjoy that. So I like having, even if it's something simple about talking about what you would do if you won the lottery or something like that. So some structures. Graham?
Yeah. Again, it depends on the level. I really seeing the production and the kind of the enjoyment of the success that lower levels have when they start to be able to use a functional piece of language and express themselves, whatever it is. When it comes to the higher levels, I actually really enjoy the structure stuff as well, to be honest. In general, I love topic, but when you look at ESP and you're introducing like something that's very specific to operating in a meeting, and that they're then going to use that in their company, that's like really rewarding. It's really cool.
Okay, and you both are also correcting a lot of activities. So in your opinion, which activities do teachers enjoy making? And does that vary across the levels?
I think teachers, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of get the feeling teachers enjoy making the topic ones. I think you can be a lot more creative with them. I think teachers find a bit more creativity inside themselves to make them rather than a structure. I think often if you see the structure ones, it kind of tends to be the same format over and over again, whereas with the topics, you can include lots of different types of different parts to the activity. I don't know, personally, again, I like doing the topic ones if I've got a good idea. Sometimes it's actually more difficult because you have to think of the idea, what the students want to talk about, and you just have to spend a lot more time preparing to make the activity, if that makes sense. But yeah, Graham, yourself, what about you? Do you prefer?
Yeah, I think with topics, it's about the creative process. It's when you, for example, when you're doing a topic, you're living your life, and there's something that you've heard in the pub or you've talked to your friends about, and you're like, wow, this would be a great topic activity because it's going to produce. So the creation process comes from you, and then you make something. But when you're doing it from a structure, syllabus led from vocabulary or a structure activity, it's much more controlled. So it's hard to be creative within the parameters of what they're asking you to do. So it's much more challenging, and it's evident that teachers definitely enjoy making a topic ones better, for sure.
Okay, so let's give teachers some practical advice when it comes to creating activities. Where do they find the information about what to do in an activity? Let's say they have to prepare a topic activity, and topic activities are usually open activities because they're taken from the news and current affairs. So, what are your tips? Where do they go and find information?
I mean, if a simple Google, or if BBC News, something, one of those news websites, I think we all kind of tend to keep up to date with what's going on around the world, even if it's through Twitter or something like that. We all kind of know what's going on. So yeah, news sources, I guess.
Would you recommend them using a textbook for a topic?
Textbook. I mean, you could maybe get an idea from a textbook. I wouldn't then use the material that it was in the textbook, but if you saw a textbook and it was talking about, I don't know, some political situation or whatever, you maybe could take that idea and then adapt it to our needs.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's tough. It's tough to take something current out of a book, isn't it?
Yeah, because
Okay, so for instance, I have here a syllabus for topics, and usually we help teachers get ideas, or more than getting ideas, get some practices, so that we are not repeating the same scheme of have an image, have a text, and read a text, and then ask this concept check question. So for instance, when we say that the sub-issue is providing facts, what is actually what the teachers have to do? For instance, I'll be more specific. We have an issue there that says business or current news topics containing research tasks for students, such as providing facts. Sometimes I do read activities that are just random facts and not based on current news.
Yeah, so it has to be based on some current news or something happening at the moment. But within that activity, there needs to be one task, if you like, one part of the activity, which is based on providing facts. Or sometimes it says, for example, a role play or something. So within the activity, that needs to be included. That's not to say that the whole activity has to be a role play or providing facts.
Exactly. One part of it has to be that.
Yeah.
Okay. And the rest is always based on current news. And okay. Yeah. Fantastic.
I think the research bit's really interesting. A lot of teachers misunderstand that bit.
Yeah.
They'll be like, I'm going to make a research task. And I'm like, well, we need to give them what they're researching in front of them. And a lot of people will maybe create a topic activity thinking that they're then going to be on Google as we're running the class, finding info.
Yeah.
It's about giving them a general thing, and they've got to identify the facts out of it.
That's exactly
that's for me.
That's it. Exactly. So just to wrap it up, for teachers to remember, whenever they have to prepare a topic based on current news or business news, it has to start from something that is current, a current event, news, whatever. And then one of the tasks has to be either sequencing or providing facts or matching or
sometimes it's a game.
Sometimes it's a game or examining situations. That's the task. Yeah. Okay, but it's always based on news.
Yeah. I mean, if we're thinking about an activity, maybe we have 3 different tasks within the activity. So you maybe have a text or a video or something, but then so long as one part of it is the providing facts part, then you've covered that.
Exactly. Actually, Graham, lately you've been insisting very much that the activity has to have 3 parts. And some of the older activities that we have are based on one thing only. And you always say, but this is not enough. So can we hear for all the teachers, what are the 3 elements that you always recommend topics to include?
Yeah, I always go with ESA, so engage, stimulate. And I include the thing that our colleague Grathia used to always tell me, I, we, you.
Yeah.
So if I'm engaging you, I'm engaging you, then we are going to stimulate this idea process together. And then it tends to be the activation stage is that fact finder or that pros and cons or that part of it. I think it's really important that those three stages are emulated. There is an I, we, you, engage, stimulate, activate.
Is a text always necessary for a topic activity, for instance?
No, I would say no. It's not always necessary.
No.
I mean, you could just start a conversation with just an image. So it doesn't have to be.
No.
What I would say, I know we use videos now and things. What I always say is have a text to go with the video. If for whatever reason the Wi-Fi doesn't work or you can't hear the video because it's a noisy bar or whatever. So then if you don't just have, I wouldn't recommend having a topic or an activity based with just a video. But you can. I wouldn't say you always have to have a text. No.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
I think diagrams and tables are really good. I've seen them in activities.
Yeah.
Really good for stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Actually, quite difficult sometimes to analyze a graph, so it's also useful for students.
Yeah, and depending on the student and where they work, sometimes they have to give presentations or speeches or whatever in English, and they need to be able to confidently talk about a graph or a chart or whatever.
Excellent. Okay, do we have any comments?
Yeah, so we've got well, they tend to be more. We got lots of comments about syllabus and things like that. So if we're thinking about syllabus, Julie asks Graham, is it okay to go off the syllabus? So imagine we have a specific syllabus set. Is it okay to go off it?
Depends on your environment. So if you're preparing someone for an exam, that syllabus is created around a criteria that must be achieved for them to pass the exam. So if you go on walkabout and you take away from that, then they're not going to pass their exam because you probably have a set amount of time. Within the company of Oxinity and their syllabus, each one is specifically made. So if it's ESP, then I guarantee the company have an expectation of time and what's going to be expected by the end of the module for what the syllabus is. And I think it depends also if it's topic or not. I mean, with topic going off syllabus, not so bad. With structure, it's really important that you stick with syllabus.
Yeah. Well, while we were on that, Patricia has left a comment. So she has a student who's wanting to pass the B2 level exam. So obviously she needs to master the 4 skills. So she's put that we review all the grammar in English through the activities. The reading and the comprehension is worked on in class as well, through text, etc. And for the writing part, she tells her to write letters or essays as homework. And we go over the mistakes the following day. So she would like to know how that affects our syllabus, if it does, and if it does affect it, and how.
Well, first of all, let's recap again, or let's remind teachers what a syllabus is. A syllabus is a guide that tells you what, for a certain level, for instance, that sets the objectives for a level. It can be based on structures or grammar. It can be based on vocabulary. And usually it aligns both because students, you can't isolate grammar from vocabulary and vice versa. So a syllabus aligns both objectives. Usually it's based on functions too, because we want students to acquire something and not so much to know whether this is the passive voice or not, but to use it to produce speech that contains it. Therefore, if you know what the objective is, of course you achieve it in a different way, but not neglecting it, I think, is in the long run, you're going to struggle. So yeah, you can choose a different path, sticking to what the objective of the syllabus is, and doing it in your own way.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think from a teaching point of view as well, the syllabus helps you to stay on track and track progress and helps you plan going forward as well.
Exactly. So if the syllabus, for instance, tells you, okay, let's take one grammar syllabus. Talk about future events. So talking about future events is the issue, and the sub-issue can be using the future perfect. So definitely not starting with what is a future perfect when we use it, not that way, obviously, but making sure that students can express, especially for the B2 level, that is something that they will have to prove competence in. So she or he, the teacher, has to make sure that the student is competent on that subject or on that function.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we have to here explain the difference between a function and a structure, because I know that teachers are kind of scared, sometimes scared about the grammar. It seems daunting and difficult, but eventually we want students to express something, through functions. So what's the difference? Graham, can you help us understand that?
Yeah, I've got a little anecdote. When I was Spanish, and my Spanish teacher decided she was around verbs, so around a structure base, and she was like working with poder, and she decided she'd teach me all, I think, 18 versions of that word. I think there's more than that. And halfway through the class, I was losing my mind, and I said to her, "Look, I want to express ability. I want to be able to express this. I want to express that." And because in every language there are verbs are great, structure is great, but the function you can use different structures to express the function. So if I know how to express myself, I can then practice expressing myself in public, and using all of the different structures. And it's just much more of a practical way to teach and then to learn. Because if you don't use it, well, you lose it, right? So if you learn functions step by step, and then you can apply it to situations, topics, that for me, my brain works that way. It's much easier.
Yeah.
Does that explain?
Yep.
That's why our syllabus is based on the function in the first place. So, for instance, being able to talk about past events, real or imagined, and then how we do it, we usually do it through a structure. So, by learning have something done, you will be able to express something in the past, for instance, with results in the present. So these things, which take a functional approach, help students reach the fluency or the proficiency that is necessary for them passing this exam. And when we structure our class, not only we have to plan what activities we are going to do, but with activities we are not going to do and why. So it's not that, oh, I dislike this activity, therefore I'm not doing it, but saying, okay, maybe have something done, my students know it, or I do a little concept checking and I move on. But when we leave something not done, it has to be with certain criteria too. I guess that's part of the class preparation.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we were just on the topic there of our syllabus that we have, Matt has asked how our teachers feel about the syllabus. So if you guys want to write in some comments about what you think of our syllabus that we have here. And he's also said that whilst at school or university, it's imperative to follow a strict syllabus. True or false, Graham? What do you think?
Yeah, well, if you want to pass your exams, I guess the simplicity of it. I think it was one of the questions I'd like to address, as you said earlier, about the B2 and stuff. That we have our syllabus set out in certain ways because we're much more communicative. But if it's a strict criteria for one of the exams, if you want to double check you're doing the right stuff with your student, just have a look at their book. In the first couple of pages, the syllabus will be laid out. And you can look at that and you can see how that transfers across and make sure you're covering what they need for their exam. It's that easy. Just for looking for syllabuses and cross-checking, comparing and contrasting.
Excellent. Whenever the objective is not passing an exam but just learning the language, then how is it different? So I guess many teachers wonder whether we have to be very strict on following the activities one by one. So up to what extent we have to follow the syllabus, up to what extent we can improvise, change the order, basically making the class fluent or flowing.
Yeah, I think
depends on the level.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Depends on the level and depends on the group. And maybe depends on the length of the class as well. So I know, for example, I have this afternoon I've got a 3-hour class and forget doing any grammar in the final hour, both for their sake and my sake. So I tend to focus on a lot of grammar for the first hour.
Yeah.
Obviously, everyone's on the ball a little bit more, and then it's a lot more conversational for that final hour. But yeah, I guess I don't think, again, the same with 2-hour classes, I tend to focus a little bit more on the grammar for the first hour while they're still feeling a bit fresh and, it's going in a bit more. And then, like Graham said, you can they're able to then use it within the class and what they've learned from the off.
Excellent.
Yeah, for sure.
And Graham, what about linking? How is linking important? Is it important at all, or can we just follow the activities one after the other without any transitions, or we'd rather have that transition between elements?
Well, there's an element between this question and the last, which Rob just mentioned, is that there's a constructive approach to teaching, and if you want to be using your language grading right, the syllabus is really important because you're going to be teaching. You really want to speak in a language that you know they've been taught already. Otherwise, they're just going to look at you like, "What's going on?" That's why it's nice to follow a syllabus and a communicative approach. And then when you come to then build your classes, you can then look. We do a table on day one of the course, and it sits and goes situation, topic, function and notion, structure and vocabulary, and it's gaps.
Yeah.
And you literally can look at. We've done this millions of times with students, me and Rob. You look at any situation and well, there's lots of topics I can do off of that, lots of structures, so on and so forth. So when you have your class and you've got them all in front of you, all of your say 6 classes for your hour, and you're going, how do I link these randoms together? Well, just think, if there's a topic, let's build round the topic. What situation can I bend from that topic to include this structure, to include this vocabulary, and then build it that way? That is kind of like how you can have everything rotating around the topic, so it has an overall theme to your class. It takes a while to get there, but when you start doing that is when you see real results for your students because everything's purposeful.
Okay, so one thing, sometimes teachers ask us, okay, can this class have more structures, for instance, or reinforcement in structures or reinforcement in a specific purpose? Okay, so yeah, it is possible, only that it's not so much possible that we include a specific content. For instance, my students want to revise the present perfect or prepositions of time. Can you provide an activity for that? So if you had a request like that, what do you guys do? Something very specific that a student wants to do right now.
In the moment.
In the moment.
I mean, me and Grim have been teaching for a while, so we would have backup and we would know what to do. But I guess for a new teacher, it would be a case of maybe, you can use the computer and find something online to kind of
you always
come up
try
with an
to
idea.
Please them, the students?
No, we've got it. Well, I guess. I want the students to be happy, right? If the student's happy, then I'm doing my job properly. But because it kind of links with a question that I've just been asked. So what if the student doesn't want to follow the syllabus? So maybe we've got a syllabus, but they don't want to follow that. What do you do, Graham? Do you say, no, we've got to stick to the syllabus, or do you make the student happy or give them what they want and go off?
Depends who's paying the bill. So if the student is their class and they want to do something their way, then that's cool. But if they're doing a business class and their boss is paying for it and has an expectation at the end of the module, and I talk to them about whatever they want for 6 months, and then we get to the end and the teacher and their boss goes, they haven't learned what I thought they were going to learn, then I'll lose a student.
I'm going to change you there, Graham, because even if the student pays the bill and wants to do something, but you know that it's not the way, how would you tell them, look, forget about that specific content of that specific grammar, let's focus on this and this. Can you do that, or you'd?
Oh no, I wouldn't do that. I would just ways of reshaping the grammar, or I'm quite sly, so I'd probably just start doing stuff and introducing it. I do quick questions and students don't realize I'm doing them.
Yeah,
that's a good point. I think you could kind of trick them into thinking they're doing what they want to, but actually kind of teaching, if they don't want to teach grammar, because I do have some students who are like, we don't want to do grammar, we just kind of want to talk, but you can still teach grammar without them realizing that they're learning it.
I think that's the beauty of it. Yeah. And that's how everyone eventually should do it, because we don't want them to learn grammar. We want them to learn the language, and language has some kind of structure. So if we can do exactly that through every activity, no matter if it's vocabulary, topic, pronunciation, whatever, that's eventually what will make them happy, most of them, I guess. Okay, so anything else?
Well, something we were talking about before, Peter said he thinks it's useful to use images to get a conversation started. That way you spend less time reading, which again is a good point. But also, what do we have? Alexis, you can somehow get the students to realize their own grammar is useful. So I guess, making, again, like we were just saying there, they know what they're teaching them without them knowing. The example of the quick questions is a good one, actually. I like that. That's a nice one, Graham.
I did one the other day. Find someone doing grammar, tell that they weren't that interested. I knew the group, I taught them before, and it was about an activity I think you made, Rob, on daily routine with Mark Wahlberg. Students who work for us will know that.
Yeah.
And it was a there is and there are.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to go, there is fruit in the fridge, there is this and that, the next thing. But I talked about daily routine. Are there enough hours in the day to do what you want to do?
Yeah.
And I built all that around that, and they found it really interesting. And we just sat and moaned about life through most of the class. There's not enough time for this.
Yeah.
There are too many people at the gym, too many posers, but they use the structure for all of it. It's just tearing apart what you have in front of you and going, how can I make this natural?
Yeah,
I think that's okay. That's true, right? If it's natural and it's kind of just flowing, then I think that they tend to be some of the better better classes.
Do you think the class changes dramatically if we just provide a different order of the activities? Imagine I choose to go vocabulary structure topic, and
No, I mean, in theory, we're all covering the same material. So in that hour session, we should have all covered a topic of vocabulary and a structure and a pronunciation. So I mean, it doesn't dramatically change if I start with a structure or I start with a topic. If I've got a class for the first time and I don't know them, I tend to start with a structure more
to check.
To get the level, and then afterwards you can kind of go in, or you don't know how open they are, or if you get some students who are very open and will tell you everything about their life, and then other ones, they want to stick or do the structure more. So if I don't know if you're the same, Graham, if you have a new class for the first time and you student, do you tend to do grammar as well first?
Yeah, I tend to just test them out.
Yeah.
I think like one of the things that we're talking about just now is when you feel really confident with your teaching. I think the basics are, for me, introduce a grammar point as early as you can, and then try and get them to use it as much as you can throughout the class. When you get to teaching for a couple of years, then you can start going, right, I want to be brilliant. I want to really make my students have a great experience, and then push yourself more. What we're talking about today is tricky, but grammar introduced first every time, Rob, normally for me.
Okay, so anything?
No, really, that's more or less it.
One last question for you guys.
Yeah.
So imagine that you have a really useful grammar content, but not so good activity. How do you go about it?
If I know the student well, you can kind of adapt that to what they are interested in. So whether it is something like moaning about their day or their hobby or something like that, I think if you know the student quite well, then you can always find some way of linking the structure to it. And in fact, a lot of the times when I do know the students well, I kind of do that, even if it's just through giving examples. If I know a student loves football, then I'll always kind of go back to practicing that structure, but related to football, something a bit more interesting.
Okay. Graham?
Yeah, that's I'm very similar. If the activity is or there's something in it they're not getting it, but the structure's there, definitely apply it. It's hard, but when you get a bit more experience, you can pull it out. It's all about being prepared. You know who your students are. If you've not met them before, it's harder. But if you've been teaching them a while and you're prepared for the class and you've had a look at what the topic is, you can take it out and change it around and make it more engaging.
Okay, excellent. Okay, guys, that was great. And for all the teachers that follow us, if you want to make more comments about the syllabus and the flow of the class and the transitions, please send us our comments. We continue either on Teams or probably on Teams. And we will see you next Friday at 12 p.m. as usual. Thank you for watching, and follow us on YouTube. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.